911. What's your emergency? Please help me. He's in the house. He has a knife. Elena's voice trembles through the phone. The sound of breaking glass echoes in the background, followed by Nathan's enraged shouts. The line goes dead at 12:43 a.m. on December 23, 2013. 3 years earlier, the Anderson family had everything. Elena Martinez-Anderson had transformed her passion for interior design into a successful business by 35. Her talent for blending modern luxury with classical elements made her the go-to designer for Chicago's elite. She spoke with a slight Spanish accent, a remnant of her childhood in Madrid that only added to her charm. Her client list included CEOs, professional athletes, and old money families who trusted her implicitly with their multimillion-dollar homes. Christopher Anderson dominated Chicago's real estate market at 39, making Anderson Properties one of the city's most respected firms. He had his father's business acumen and his mother's patience, a combination that served him well in the cutthroat world of luxury real estate development. Chris specialized in transforming historic properties into modern masterpieces while maintaining their architectural integrity. His latest project, a full-block development in Lincoln Park, was set to be his greatest achievement. Their daughter Isabella, 13, took after both parents. She inherited Elena's determination and Chris's charm, excelling as a competitive swimmer at Latin School of Chicago while maintaining straight A's. Her coaches already talked about Olympic potential, and her times in butterfly stroke were breaking regional records. Isabella spent every morning in the pool before school, training with a focus unusual for her age. The Andersons lived in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood, their limestone mansion on Aestia Street a testament to their success. Elena had personally overseen its restoration, turning the 19th-century building into a showcase of modern luxury while respecting its historical character. The house featured in architectural magazines and served as the perfect advertisement for both Elena's design skills and Chris's development expertise. Nathan Anderson, Chris's younger brother, returned to Chicago in 2010 after his architectural firm failed in Los Angeles. At 31, he arrived with nothing but talent and charm, both in abundance but neither quite enough to pay his mounting debts. The brothers had always been close despite their differences. Where Chris was steady and reliable, Nathan was spontaneous and creative. Where Chris built his success brick by brick, Nathan always looked for shortcuts to the top. Chris never gave up on his younger brother, constantly finding positions for him at Anderson Properties. Everyone deserves a second chance, Chris would say at board meetings when questions about Nathan's role arose. Nathan moved into the family's guest house temporarily, claiming he needed time to find his own place. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Initially, Elena kept her distance from Nathan. She'd heard enough stories about his failed ventures and romantic entanglements to be wary. But Nathan proved surprisingly good with Isabella, helping with her art projects and attending swim meets when Chris was tied up with work. He had a way of making people feel special, of making mundane moments seem exciting. Soon, he became Uncle Nathan, the fun one who brought spontaneity into their structured lives. The family settled into a comfortable routine. Weekday mornings began with Isabella's swim practice, followed by Chris heading to the office while Elena worked from her home studio. Nathan would often join them for dinner, entertaining everyone with stories about his LA adventures or his latest architectural ideas. Weekends were filled with Isabella's swim meets, charity events, and family gatherings where Nathan charmed everyone with his wit and artistic vision. But beneath this perfect surface, subtle tensions simmered. Chris worked longer hours as his Lincoln Park project grew more complex. Elena found herself increasingly relying on Nathan for company and support. Isabella noticed the changes but stayed focused on her swimming, channeling any anxiety into her training. December 15, 2011, started like any other winter morning in Chicago. The temperature had dropped overnight, leaving a thin layer of frost on the mansion's windows. Chris had an early meeting with investors for the Lincoln Park project. Elena worked on the Christmas decorations, preparing for their annual holiday party. Isabella rushed through breakfast, excited about her school's winter recital that evening. At 10:47 a.m., Elena's phone rang. Chris had collapsed during his meeting. By the time Elena and Isabella reached Northwestern Memorial Hospital, doctors were already pronouncing time of death. Massive heart attack, they said. No warning signs. No chance for goodbyes. Just the cruel suddenness of fate changing everything in an instant. Nathan arrived within hours, taking charge when Elena couldn't. He handled funeral arrangements, notified family members, and dealt with the immediate business concerns that couldn't wait even for grief. He moved from the guest house into the main house, claiming Elena and Isabella shouldn't be alone. No one questioned it then. Everything happened too fast, too brutally for questions. The first Christmas without Chris cast a heavy shadow over the mansion. The traditional Anderson family party was cancelled. Boxes of decorations remained unopened in the attic. Isabella refused to hang her father's crystal star ornament, a tradition since her first Christmas. The house felt empty despite Nathan's constant presence, or perhaps because of it. Elena and Nathan spent Christmas Eve in Chris's study, looking through family photos. Elena finally broke down crying, with Nathan comforting her. Their housekeeper Maria Santos would later recall this moment in her testimony, describing how Nathan held Elena as she sobbed, his own eyes fixed on a family portrait where he stood slightly apart from the others, watching his brother's perfect family with an expression Santos couldn't quite define. The perfect family image had cracked, setting in motion events that would lead to that fatal December night in 2013. The Anderson family story was about to take a dark turn, though none of them could see it yet. Nathan's arm around Elena's shoulders that Christmas Eve wasn't just brotherly comfort. It was the first step down a path that would end with blood on the imported marble floors and a 911 call cutting through the winter night. Through January 2012, Elena threw herself into work while Nathan gradually took over more household responsibilities. He drove Isabella to swim practice, attended parent-teacher conferences, and handled maintenance issues around the house. To outsiders, it looked like family pulling together in crisis. To those closest to the Andersons, something felt off, but no one could quite say what. The story of the Andersons would soon become a cautionary tale about grief, desire, and the thin line between comfort and obsession. But in those early days of 2012, they were just a family trying to survive loss, unaware that the worst was yet to come. January 2012 brought bitter cold to Chicago, matching the chill that had settled over the Anderson mansion. Elena found herself staring at empty spaces, Chris's chair at breakfast, his closet still full of pressed suits, his reading glasses on the bedside table. Single parenthood crashed over her like a wave, leaving her gasping for air. Isabella's swimming schedule didn't pause for grief. 5 a.m. practices meant dark morning drives through empty streets. Elena would watch her daughter slice through the water, Chris's absence a phantom weight beside her on the bleachers. Nathan started attending these morning sessions, bringing coffee and quiet support. "Let me help with the business decisions," Nathan offered one morning, as Elena struggled with paperwork from Anderson Properties. Chris had left everything to her, but real estate development was never her world. Nathan's architectural background made him seem like a natural fit. Elena signed the first power of attorney without really reading it. Sunday dinners became their new tradition. Elena would cook her mother's Spanish recipes while Nathan entertained Isabella with stories about Chris's college days. But Isabella grew quieter with each passing week. Her swim times improved as she channeled her grief into training, but she stopped joining them for movies or family game nights. "I just need to focus on swimming," she'd say, disappearing upstairs while Nathan lingered in the kitchen, helping Elena with dishes, their hands brushing in soapy water. February brought complications at Anderson Properties. Several investors questioned Nathan's growing role in decision-making. Chris wouldn't have wanted this, Thomas Reynolds, Chris's longtime partner, warned Elena during a tense board meeting. But Nathan handled the opposition smoothly, his charm and confidence reminiscent of Chris in ways that made Elena's heart ache. The loneliness crept in during quiet evenings. Elena would find herself in Chris's study, surrounded by his things, fighting waves of panic about the future. Nathan always seemed to know when these moments hit. He'd appear with wine and understanding, sitting close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Chris would want you to be happy," Nathan would say, his hand resting on her shoulder longer than necessary. "He would want us to take care of each other." March brought the first whispers among the household staff. Maria Santos noticed Nathan's car in the driveway at odd hours. The gardener reported finding empty wine bottles in the study almost daily. Isabella's swim coach expressed concern about her increasing isolation, but Elena was too caught up in her own grief to see the warning signs. April saw Nathan move his office into the mansion's east wing. "It's more practical," he explained, though his presence now stretched from early morning coffee to late-night conversations in the study. Elena found herself dressing more carefully each day, applying makeup before breakfast, telling herself it was part of healing. May brought warm breezes and dangerous comfort. Elena and Nathan worked late one night, reviewing property documents. The wine flowed freely as Nathan described his vision for expanding Anderson properties. His hand found hers across the desk, Chris's desk, and neither pulled away. "Sometimes I see so much of him in you," Elena whispered, instantly regretting the words. But Nathan's eyes held hers, full of understanding and something else, something that should have warned her. June arrived with suffocating humidity and unspoken tension. Isabella qualified for national swimming championships, but her victory celebration felt hollow. She watched her mother and uncle with increasingly suspicious eyes, spending more time at friends' houses. The first real line was crossed during a thunderstorm. Elena, startled by lightning, found herself in Nathan's arms. The comfort should have been brotherly, but his fingers traced patterns on her back, his breath warm against her neck. They stayed that way too long, both knowing they should pull away, neither wanting to. "I should go," Nathan said finally, his voice rough. But he didn't move, and Elena didn't step back. The next morning, guilt crashed over Elena. She avoided Nathan for days, throwing herself into work and Isabella's swimming schedule. But loneliness has a way of wearing down resolve, and grief makes people blind to red flags that would otherwise be obvious. Thomas Reynolds made one last attempt to intervene in late June. Chris would be worried, he told Elena during a private lunch. Nathan's always been possessive of things that belonged to his brother. Elena dismissed the warning, not realizing she had become one of those things. By month's end, the lines between family comfort and something more inappropriate had blurred beyond recognition. Nathan's touches lingered. Late-night conversations turned intimate. Elena found herself sharing things she'd only ever told Chris, while Nathan's eyes held promises that should have terrified her. Isabella watched it all with quiet devastation. Her mother was slipping away, replaced by someone who laughed too loudly at Nathan's jokes and wore clothes that belonged on a different woman. She threw herself into swimming with renewed determination, breaking records and earning concerned looks from her coaches. The household staff exchanged knowing glances. Maria Santos considered calling Elena's parents in Madrid but feared overstepping. The gardener quit without explanation. The family's social circle began to shrink as friends made excuses to decline invitations. June ended with a heat wave that drove everyone indoors. Elena and Nathan worked late again, this time reviewing plans for a new development. The air conditioning hummed as they sat close together on Chris's leather sofa, pretending to study blueprints while hyper-aware of each accidental touch. "We should hire more help," Nathan suggested, his fingers brushing Elena's arm. "You're taking on too much." "I'm fine," Elena insisted, but she didn't move away. The ghost of Chris seemed to fade a little more each time Nathan moved closer. The month closed with a family dinner that felt anything but familial. Isabella pushed food around her plate while Elena and Nathan carried on a conversation full of private jokes and lingering looks. Later, Maria Santos would tell police she heard crying from Isabella's room that night. July approached like a storm on the horizon, bringing with it changes that would destroy what remained of the Anderson family's façade. But in those last days of June, Elena told herself everything was fine. They were just family supporting each other through grief. The comfort wasn't inappropriate. It was necessary. She almost believed it. The 4th of July gathering at the Anderson mansion marked a turning point. Chicago's heat wave had reached brutal levels, the air thick with tension and unspoken desires. Elena hosted the annual family barbecue, a tradition Chris had always loved. Nathan manned the grill, Chris's grill, wearing his brother's old apron, smiling his brother's smile. Family members noticed the changes. Aunt Margaret whispered about Elena's new dress, too fitted for a widow of 6 months. Uncle Robert questioned Nathan's authority over Anderson Properties' latest deals. Isabella remained by the pool, refusing to join the adults, her swimming times posted on the fridge like a shield against conversation. That night, after guests left and Isabella went to bed, Elena found Nathan in Chris's study. The remnants of fireworks still colored the sky through the window. They'd both had too much wine, their defenses weakened by alcohol and summer heat. "You looked beautiful today," Nathan said, standing too close. "Chris would be proud of how you're handling everything." The mention of Chris's name should have stopped what happened next. Instead, Elena found herself leaning into Nathan as he kissed her, the guilt immediately overshadowed by desperate loneliness. They broke apart quickly, both shocked by crossing this final line. "This can't happen," Elena whispered, but her fingers gripped his shirt. July blurred into a series of stolen moments. Quick touches in the kitchen, lingering looks across dinner tables, late-night meetings in the study that had nothing to do with business. Each encounter ended with promises to stop, promises broken within days. August brought Isabella's national swimming championships in Indianapolis. Elena and Nathan used these competitions as cover for their first weekend away together. While Isabella sliced through water, breaking personal records, her mother and uncle shared a hotel room 10 blocks away, their guilt lost in sheets that weren't their own. "We should tell people," Nathan suggested one night, his fingers tracing patterns on Elena's bare shoulder. "Start fresh, be honest." But Elena knew better. Chicago's social circles wouldn't forgive this betrayal. Anderson Properties investors wouldn't understand. And Isabella. Elena couldn't bear to think how her daughter would react. September saw Nathan's attachment growing stronger. He began leaving clothes in Elena's room, suggesting changes to Chris's study, making long-term plans. His possessiveness emerged in subtle ways, questioning Elena's lunch meetings, checking her phone messages, suggesting she scale back her design business. "I can take care of us," he'd say, echoing Chris's words but with a different undertone. "You don't need to work so hard." October brought close calls. Maria Santos almost caught them in the kitchen one morning. Isabella came home early from practice, forcing Nathan to hide in Chris's closet among suits that still smelled of her dead husband's cologne. Each near discovery added excitement and shame in equal measure. Elena's emotions swung between extremes. Some days she convinced herself this was fate, Chris's final gift, leaving her in his brother's caring hands. Other days, guilt crushed her chest as she passed family photos in the hallway, Chris's eyes seeming to follow her movements. November arrived with biting wind and family tensions. Thanksgiving loomed like a threat. Elena invited Chris's parents out of obligation, watching Nathan play the dutiful son while exchanging secretive glances with her across cranberry sauce and stuffing. Isabella, now 14, grew more withdrawn. Her swimming provided convenient escape, but Elena caught her crying in Chris's study one night, clutching his old sweater. When Elena tried to comfort her, Isabella pulled away. "You're different now," Isabella accused. "Both of you are different." December brought holiday parties and mounting pressure. Nathan pushed for acknowledgement, tired of hiding. At the annual Anderson Properties Christmas Gala, he stood too close, touched too often, drew too many raised eyebrows. "People are starting to talk," Thomas Reynolds warned Elena after catching Nathan's possessive glare across the ballroom. "Chris wouldn't want." "Chris is dead," Elena snapped, immediately regretting her words. Christmas approached with suffocating speed. Elena decorated the mansion mechanically, each ornament a reminder of happier times. Nathan suggested removing some of Chris's photos, earning a rare burst of anger from Elena. Their first real fight erupted over holiday plans. "We can't keep pretending," Nathan argued. "I love you. I want a real life with you." But Elena wasn't ready. The ghost of Chris lingered in every room, his absence still an open wound. Nathan's growing demands felt like betrayal piled upon betrayal. The holiday season peaked with tension. Isabella refused to attend Christmas Eve dinner, staying at her grandparents' house instead. Elena and Nathan sat in Chris's study, the Christmas tree lights casting shadows on guilty faces. When Nathan proposed they make their relationship public in the new year, Elena's hesitation sparked ugly words. "He's gone, Elena," Nathan said harshly. "You're holding on to a ghost while pushing away someone who's actually here." "He was your brother," Elena reminded him, the words landing like slaps. December ended with unresolved arguments and dangerous obsession growing in Nathan's eyes. Elena noticed him watching her more intensely, checking her phone when she wasn't looking, questioning her every movement. As 2012 drew to a close, Elena felt trapped between guilt and desire, between loyalty to Chris's memory and her need for comfort. Nathan's patience wore thin, his charm giving way to flashes of something darker. Isabella, perceptive beyond her years, watched it all with growing dread. Her mother's laughter had become brittle, her uncle's affection suffocating. The new year approached with storm clouds gathering, though none of them could predict just how devastating that storm would be. The final day of 2012 found Elena alone in Chris's study, surrounded by holiday decorations and family photos, wondering how she'd let things go so far. Nathan's keys rattled in the front door. He had his own set now, and Elena felt her heart race with equal parts anticipation and fear. The Anderson family's façade was cracking, revealing dangerous obsessions and uncontrollable desires beneath. In less than a year, these cracks would split wide open, leading to that fateful December night in 2013 when a 911 call would shatter the silence of Chicago's Gold Coast. The Anderson Mansion's New Year's Eve party of 2013 marked the beginning of the end. Chicago's elite gathered in their finest, champagne flowing as freely as the gossip. Elena wore a red dress that caught every eye, especially Nathan's, whose possessive gaze followed her throughout the evening. At midnight, when couples kissed, Nathan grabbed Elena in front of everyone. The kiss lasted too long, held too much heat for a brother-in-law. Margaret Wheeler, Chris's oldest friend, saw it all from across the room. The champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on imported marble, a sound that would echo through the coming months. "What are you thinking?" Elena hissed afterward, pulling Nathan into Chris's study. "Everyone saw." "Good," Nathan shot back, his charm slipping to reveal something harder. "I'm tired of hiding. You're mine now." That word, mine, should have been her first real warning. January brought swift consequences. Margaret confronted Elena over lunch at the Drake Hotel. "Chris hasn't been gone a year," she said, disgust evident in her voice. "His brother, Elena? Of all people." Elena denied everything, but her flushed face betrayed the truth. Within weeks, dinner invitations dwindled. Former friends crossed streets to avoid conversation. Chicago's social circle could forgive many things, but not this. Nathan's behavior shifted dramatically in February. He began showing up at Elena's client meetings unannounced. His calls became frequent, demanding to know her whereabouts. When she didn't answer immediately, he would appear at her location, always with a plausible excuse that felt like a threat. "I worry about you," he'd say, his smile not reaching his eyes. "After what happened to Chris, we can't be too careful." Elena tried creating distance. She scheduled early morning meetings, knowing Nathan slept late. She invented client dinners to avoid evenings at home. But Nathan's grip only tightened. He hired a new assistant at Anderson Properties who reported Elena's every move. March brought Isabella's first direct confrontation. "Are you sleeping with Uncle Nathan?" she asked over breakfast, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Elena's silence was answer enough. Isabella stopped coming home for dinner after that, spending evenings at the pool or her grandparents' house. The discovery of Nathan's financial troubles came through Thomas Reynolds in April. His drowning in debt, Thomas revealed during a secret meeting. Gambling, failed investments, loans from dangerous people. Chris kept bailing him out, but now, Elena began investigating Anderson Properties books. Nathan had been given limited power of attorney, but she discovered his reach extended far beyond their agreement. Missing funds, questionable transfers, properties mortgaged without proper authorization. May brought more revelations. While Nathan showered one morning, his phone buzzed repeatedly. Elena, never having checked it before, found hundreds of photos, herself at meetings, shopping, even sleeping. Nathan had been documenting her every move for months. More disturbing were the old photos, Elena and Chris at parties, but with Chris cropped out. Nathan had been collecting these for years, long before his brother's death. In some, he had digitally inserted himself in Chris's place. Planning our future, Nathan explained when confronted, seeing nothing wrong with his actions. I've loved you since the day Chris introduced us. He knew it too. Why do you think he kept finding excuses to keep me away? Elena felt sick remembering Chris's reluctance to have Nathan around, his insistence on separate holiday celebrations. She'd attributed it to brotherly rivalry. Now she understood it had been protection. June arrived with suffocating heat and mounting tension. Chris's parents finally voiced their concerns during a family dinner. This isn't right, Chris's mother said, watching Nathan's hand possessively grip Elena's shoulder. Chris would be horrified. Nathan's explosion at his parents' words revealed the rage beneath his polished surface. He upended the dinner table, crystal and china shattering as he screamed about always being second best, about Chris having everything he wanted. But he's gone now, Nathan snarled, his face twisted. It's my turn. Elena began planning her escape that night. She contacted her parents in Madrid, started moving money into separate accounts. But Nathan's surveillance made every move dangerous. His network at Anderson Properties meant no local attorney was safe to consult. Isabella, witnessing Nathan's dinner meltdown, began sleeping with her bedroom door locked. Her swimming provided cover for meetings with her grandparents, who started documenting Nathan's concerning behavior. The facade of family love had completely crumbled by mid-June. Nathan dropped all pretense of brotherly affection toward Isabella, treating her as competition for Elena's attention. He suggested sending her to boarding school, growing angry when Elena refused. She looks too much like Chris, he said one night, the comment sending chills down Elena's spine. Always watching us, judging us, just like he would. Elena found more disturbing content on Nathan's laptop. Detailed plans for their future together, including designs for renovating the mansion that erased every trace of Chris. Architectural drawings showed Chris's study converted to a master suite, his belongings disposed of, his photos removed. The final straw came during the Anderson Properties mid-year board meeting. Nathan presented plans to sell Chris's beloved Lincoln Park project, claiming Elena supported the decision. When she objected, his mask slipped completely. You don't have a choice, he said later that night, gripping her arm hard enough to bruise. Everything you have is because of me now. Don't forget that. Elena realized with horror that she had slowly become a prisoner in her own home. Nathan had isolated her from friends, alienated her from family, and wrapped financial tentacles around her assets. His obsession, hidden for so long behind charm and familial concern, now showed its true face. June ended with Elena sleeping with her bedroom door locked, just like Isabella. Nathan's rage at this small defiance manifested in subtle warfare. Missing car keys, disconnected phone calls, appointments mysteriously cancelled. Chris warned me about Nathan's obsessions, Thomas Reynolds said during another secret meeting. But none of us imagined this. As June gave way to July, Elena understood she was living with a man capable of anything. The question was no longer if Nathan would snap, but when, and who would pay the price when he did. The security cameras Nathan had installed to protect them now felt like prison guards. Every room held memories twisted by his presence. Even Chris's study, once a sanctuary, had become a place of tension and fear. Elena knew she had to act soon. But Nathan watched her every move, his obsession growing stronger with each attempt at distance. She could feel time running out, like sand in an hourglass, counting down to something terrible. What she didn't know then was that she had exactly 6 months until that fateful December night when everything would explode in violence and desperate choices. Nathan's first violent outburst came on a sweltering July morning. Elena had mentioned visiting her parents in Madrid, taking Isabella for the rest of the summer. The coffee mug shattered against the wall inches from her head. "You're not going anywhere," Nathan snarled, his face contorted into something unrecognizable. "This is your home. I'm your family now." Elena saw Chris's brother vanish, replaced by a stranger wearing his face. That afternoon, She tried ending their relationship in his office at Anderson Properties, choosing a public location for safety. "I can't do this anymore, Nathan. We both know this isn't right." His response chilled her. "You don't get to leave me. Chris left you to me. You're mine." He swept everything off his desk, family photos shattering on the floor. Isabella witnessed their next fight in August. Coming home early from swim practice, she found Nathan gripping Elena's wrists in the kitchen, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Tell me who you were meeting. Tell me. Let go of my mom." Isabella screamed, shocking them both. Nathan released Elena, his charm snapping back into place, but the damage was done. Isabella called her grandparents that night. The stalking escalated through September. Elena would spot Nathan's car outside her client meetings. Her phone showed signs of tracking apps. Flowers arrived at every restaurant she visited, cards signed, "Always watching, N." Anonymous threats began reaching the extended family. Chris's parents received photos of Elena with red XS marked through them. Isabella's swim coach got emails warning her to stop hosting secret meetings with Elena after practice. In October, Thomas Reynolds delivered the file that explained everything. Nathan's psychiatric history spanned 20 years. Obsessive behavior, violent episodes, delusional attachments. Chris had paid for treatments, kept it quiet, protected his brother while protecting others from him. "Your husband knew exactly what Nathan was capable of," Thomas explained. "It's why he kept him at arm's length." Those business trips Nathan took, many were actually psychiatric holds. The family attempted intervention in late October. Chris's parents, Elena's parents flown in from Madrid, Thomas Reynolds, and Margaret Wheeler gathered at the mansion. Nathan played his part perfectly until Elena mentioned separation. His mask crackled. "You think you can gang up on me? I own this family." The violence that followed cleared the room. Only Thomas stayed, calling the police while Nathan destroyed the study that had once been his brother's sanctuary. Elena filed for a restraining order the next day. November brought court dates, police reports, and Nathan's calculated response. He appeared in court impeccably dressed, perfectly calm, presenting photos and emails that painted Elena as unstable, himself as a concerned brother-in-law. "She's had trouble coping since Chris died," he told the judge smoothly. "I've only tried to help." The restraining order was denied. That night, Elena found every photo of Chris in the house turned face down. A message written in her lipstick on the master bathroom mirror read, "Till death do us part." Nathan had won this round, but in doing so, revealed his true self to everyone. The countdown to December's violence had begun. December brought Chicago's coldest winter in years, but inside the Anderson mansion, things were heating up to a breaking point. Nathan's breakdown began with small incidents. Chris's remaining clothes shredded in the driveway, Elena's passport mysteriously shredded, photo albums doused in red wine. Elena recognized the escalation. After finding dead roses on her pillow, she sent Isabella to her grandparents under the guise of holiday preparations. Her daughter left with a tight hug and tears in her eyes. "Promise you'll be careful, Mom." The Christmas decorations became Elena's calendar of terror. Each day Nathan removed one item, replacing it with something disturbing. The angel atop the tree disappeared, replaced by a photo of Elena sleeping. Stockings were filled with shredded papers, her legal documents, passport photos, Isabella's swim medals. December 23rd started with an eerie calm. Elena had planned to leave that night, bags packed, tickets to Madrid purchased under a different name. But Nathan had been watching, always watching. 11:30 p.m., the security system's familiar hum went silent. Elena, working late in Chris's study, noticed immediately. Her phone showed no signal. The cell jammer Nathan had installed during his security upgrades was active. 11:45 p.m., glass shattered in the garden room. Elena locked the study door, hands trembling as she dialed 911 on the landline. Nathan's footsteps echoed through the mansion, taking his time, knowing she was trapped. "Come out, Elena. It's time to keep your promises." 12 a.m., the study door splintered under Nathan's assault. He stood in the doorway, Chris's old hunting knife in hand, wearing his brother's favorite suit. You really thought you could leave? His laugh held no trace of the charming brother-in-law he'd once pretended to be. You're mine. Chris knew you would be. Why do you think he really kept me away? Elena backed away, Chris's heavy desk between them. You're sick, Nathan. You need help. What I need is you. He lunged, slashing the knife through air where Elena had been seconds before. 12:15 a.m. Their struggle spilled out of the study. Elena's screams finally penetrated the thick mansion walls. Neighbors, long suspicious of strange noises, called 911. Nathan caught Elena by the hair in the main hall, dragging her back toward the study. We'll be together in here, where it all started. Where Chris first introduced us. Remember? You were wearing blue. I knew then you'd be mine. 12:30 a.m. Police sirens pierced the night. Nathan's grip tightened, the knife pressing against Elena's throat. They can't have you. No one can. Officers burst through multiple entrances, weapons drawn. Nathan held Elena as a shield, backing them into the study. Stay back. She's mine. She's always been mine. 12:45 a.m. The confrontation reached its violent end in Chris's study. When Nathan saw the SWAT team's laser sights on his chest, something snapped completely. He charged them with the knife, dragging Elena. If I can't have her, no one will. 5 shots rang out. Nathan's body jerked with each impact. His last words are whispered. Chris knew. He always knew. He died on the Persian rug where he and Elena had shared their first kiss, his blood seeping into imported wool, still clutching the knife meant for her throat. Elena survived with minor cuts and bruises, but the psychological wounds would take longer to heal. As police led her out, she passed the Christmas tree Nathan had doctored. At its top, where the angel should have been, sat the last photo of Chris, his face crossed out, replaced with Nathan's in a crude collage. The Anderson mansion, once a symbol of family success, became a crime scene. Yellow tape replaced Christmas garlands, police flashbulbs competed with holiday lights, and Elena realized how close she'd come to becoming another tragic headline. Later, investigators would find Nathan's detailed plans in his apartment. Tickets to Mexico, fake passports, a cabin booked in the mountains. He'd planned to take Elena there, willing or not, to start their new life together. They also found his diary, revealing an obsession that predated Chris's death by years. The last entry, dated December 23rd, read simply, "Tonight she becomes mine forever. Chris can't stop us now." Christmas Eve 2013 found the Anderson mansion bathed in police lights instead of holiday decorations. Evidence markers replaced ornaments. Forensic photographers documented blood spatter where stockings should have hung. Elena sat in an ambulance, shock blanket around her shoulders, watching her perfect world crumble under police tape. The investigation revealed horrors nobody had suspected. In Nathan's apartment, detectives discovered a shrine to Elena. Walls covered with surveillance photos spanning years before Chris's death. Hidden cameras had been installed throughout the mansion. A journal detailed Nathan's growing obsession, starting the day Chris first introduced them. "I've never seen anything like it," Detective Sarah Morrison told reporters. He'd been planning this for years. Chris's death just gave him the opportunity he'd been waiting for. The media descended like vultures. Chicago Tribune ran the headline, "Anderson Family Tragedy. Brother's Obsession Ends in Bloodshed." National news picked up the story, spinning tales of wealth, betrayal, and fatal attraction. Elena's affair with Nathan became public knowledge, dissected by morning show hosts and true crime podcasters. Isabella refused to return to the mansion. Now living with her grandparents, she threw herself into swimming with renewed intensity, breaking records while refusing therapy. Her only comment to the press, "We lost Dad twice, first to death, then to betrayal." Elena's guilt manifested in sleepless nights and endless questions. Could she have prevented this? Should she have seen the signs? Her therapist helped her understand the manipulation, how Nathan had used her grief to create dependency, but acceptance came slowly. The Anderson family splintered. Chris's parents couldn't reconcile Elena's affair with their son's memory, even knowing Nathan's dangerous obsession. Elena's parents urged her to return to Madrid, to escape the whispers and judgment. The mansion stood empty, its rooms echoing with too many ghosts. Anderson Properties faced its own crisis. Investigation revealed Nathan had embezzled millions, using company funds to finance his obsession. Projects halted, investors fled, and the empire Chris built teetered on collapse. Thomas Reynolds worked tirelessly to save what he could, protecting Chris's legacy. Spring 2014 brought the first signs of healing. Elena sold the mansion, donated the proceeds to domestic violence charities. Isabella qualified for Olympic trials, her pain transformed into powerful strokes cutting through water. The media moved on to fresher scandals, leaving the Andersons to rebuild in peace. Summer found Elena in a smaller home, learning to live with her choices and their consequences. She reopened her design business, working with domestic violence shelters to create safe spaces. Isabella began spending weekends with her, their relationship slowly mending through shared grief and understanding. Chicago's social circles gradually welcomed Elena back, her story recast from scandal to survival. Women approached her privately, sharing their own stories of manipulation and obsession. She started a support group, turning her experience into a beacon for others. The first anniversary of Nathan's death brought unexpected closure. Elena and Isabella visited Chris's grave together for the first time since everything happened. They found his parents there, the shared loss finally bridging the gulf between them. "Chris would be proud of you both," his mother said, embracing Elena. "You survived. You protected Isabella. That's what matters." December 2014 arrived with gentle snow instead of violence. Elena and Isabella decorated a small tree in their new home, each ornament carefully chosen to honor their past while embracing their future. The security system remained state-of-the-art, but fear no longer ruled their lives. In the end, the Anderson tragedy became a cautionary tale about the masks people wear, the fine line between love and obsession, and the strength required to survive when those lines blur. Elena still jumps at unexpected noises, still checks dark corners, but she's learning to trust again, to live again. Isabella's Olympic dreams remain intact, her determination now tempered with understanding. She keeps a photo of Chris in her locker, but she stopped looking for him in every shadow, stopped blaming herself for not protecting her mother sooner. The mansion on Aestia Street sold to a young family, its dark history disclosed but its future bright. Elena drove past it recently, noting Christmas lights in windows where crime scene tape once hung. Life moves forward, even when moving on seems impossible. 1 year after Nathan's death, Elena finally read his journal, seeking understanding rather than answers. The last page haunts her still. She'll understand eventually. "We're meant to be together." Chris knew. He always knew. But Chris hadn't known everything. He hadn't known Elena's strength, Isabella's resilience, or their capacity to rebuild from ruins. The Anderson family story became more than tragedy. It became a testament to survival, to choosing life after loss, to finding light in the darkest places. Elena keeps only one photo from that time. Chris holding newborn Isabella, his smile untouched by future shadows. Everything else was donated to a true crime museum, a reminder that the greatest dangers sometimes hide behind familiar faces. "We're still here," Elena told Isabella on the anniversary of that terrible night. "That's what matters. We're still here."